and numerous other print and media programs. She is also the author of the nationally best-selling book, Unplanned, which chronicles both her experiences within Planned Parenthood and her dramatic exit. The movie adaptation of Unplanned was released in the spring of 2019. Please help me welcome Miss Abby Johnson.
All right, well, I live in the great state of Texas, so howdy. It's good to be here with all of you today. I actually grew up in New Roads, Louisiana, so I am from this state, and actually it brought back a lot of good memories because being here in Natchitoches, because when I was driving by Northwestern last night, anybody go to Northwestern here? Hi. When I was driving by there last night, I remembered that when I was a little girl, my first cheerleading camp I ever attended was at Northwestern, and my mom bought me a Northwestern t-shirt, and I wore that thing until it had holes in it. So good memories here, and I remember the meat pies, so I've already had 2. So anyway, good memories of visiting here in Natchitoches. So I'm so glad to be back, and you also have the best Christmas decorations. I do remember that also, coming and visiting here as a kid. So I'm so glad to be back, and glad to be here with you today. And look at God's favor. He's brought out the sun for us, so be a little bit warmer. And anyway, yeah, so I live in Austin, Texas now. It's the weirdest part of Texas. It's like the Portland of Texas. It's bizarre there. And I live there with my husband, Doug, and our 8 children. And I know, it's a lot of kids, I know. I tell people we became pro-life and we couldn't stop breeding. The reality though is that we became Catholic and we couldn't stop breeding. So that's the reality. But yeah, so our oldest daughter is 16, and then we have 5 boys in a row. They are 10, 9, 8, and 7. And I know, I was there. And then we said to God, okay, we want to have one more. And he gave us twin girls. So funny. And they're 5. And then we had one more, a little boy, and his name is Fulton. And we're done. And I know I've said that like 4 other times, but really, I think we're done. But I've kind of stopped like making those sorts of absolute statements to God, because like I once said, I'm never gonna drive a minivan. And now we drive a 12-passenger van. So, you know, I try not to make those statements anymore. But anyway, you know, most of you know my story. How many of you have seen Unplanned? Yay. So most of you know my story. You know that I worked at Planned Parenthood, our country's largest abortion provider. I worked there for 8 years of my life. I got started in college. I grew up in a pro-life home. I grew up in a home that, you know, we were involved in church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. I was involved in youth group and youth choir and went to all the youth camps and all of that. And but you know, abortion wasn't something that we really talked about in my home. We didn't sit around the dinner table and you know, talk about the ins and outs of being pro-life or pro-choice. I think my parents just believed, well, we've taught her the biblical pathway to marriage, and so as long as she follows that path, then abortion's never going to be something that's on the table. So we don't really need to talk about something so unpleasant with our little girl. And so we really didn't talk about it. You know, it was a different time then too, in the late 70s, early 80s. You know, the media really didn't talk about abortion like they do now. It wasn't on TV all the time. It wasn't in, we didn't have the internet. So it wasn't, online. It wasn't in the paper all the time. People just didn't really talk about it. Anything involving sexuality was really still considered very taboo. And so it just wasn't really discussed. It wasn't really discussed in the home. It certainly wasn't discussed in the church. And so, and that was a time when abortion, the abortion industry was still saying that abortion should be kept safe, legal, and rare. And that made a lot of sense to a lot of people, and so it just really wasn't discussed. Nobody was standing up at a podium and shouting their abortion. Women were not proud of the fact that they had had abortions. They weren't proud of the fact that they had killed their children. So I went to college, and I was on my campus one day. I met a woman who was with Planned Parenthood, and she started telling me about their services and all the amazing things that they do for women, particularly low-income women. And I just thought, well, that sounds great. I mean, who doesn't want to help women? Everybody wants to help women. Who doesn't want to help low-income women? Everybody. Who doesn't want to help empower women? Everybody. I remember her asking me what I thought about abortion. And I thought, well, I remember saying out loud, well, I've grown up pro-life. And she said, well, that's good. She said, pro-lifers are good people. They're just kind of misguided. And she said, what they don't understand is that without safe and legal abortion, women are going to be forced to go where? The back alleys, right? And women, they're just, without safe and legal abortion, they're just going to be, going to these dangerous clinics, and they're just going to be dying everywhere. There's just going to be women everywhere, just all over the streets, just dying of these dangerous, illegal abortions. And I thought, well, gosh, that sounds bad. I don't want that. And so I thought, okay, well, this sounds like the logical solution then. And she said to me, we want to reduce the number of abortions. We don't want abortions to increase. We want to decrease them. That's why we're here. That's why Planned Parenthood is here. I said, okay, that sounds good. I signed up. I went to the clinic, I started volunteering, and then just a short while later, I graduated from college. They offered me a job. It was a lot of money for somebody who had just graduated college. I signed on, became a paid employee, continued to get promoted, and then, all of a sudden, I'm responsible for the whole clinic. I'm running the clinic. Sometimes people say, that time, this time in my life, it went by really slow, or it went by really fast. And I can really say those 8 years of my life, I look back on that time, and it went by so fast. And in that 8 years, all of the sins that I accumulated during that time, it just happened so fast. I can't even believe all of the things that I participated in. It just happened like in the blink of an eye. I started so innocently wanting to help women, and then 8 years later, I had helped to facilitate over 22,000 abortions. I had taken the lives of 2 of my own children by abortion. And it just happened so fast. The last year that I was at Planned Parenthood, at my affiliate, we had had a meeting, and it was a manager's meeting, a management meeting. My whole time at Planned Parenthood, At that time, most people who were pro-choice, who said they were pro-choice, they, if you ask them, you know, is there a line in the sand where you would say, you know, well, abortion is okay up until here, but not okay, you know, past this point. Most people at that time, now this is, you know, 13, 15 years ago, most people at that time would have said, yes, viability. At the point of viability, that's too far. You shouldn't have abortions past the point of viability. And that would have been my answer too. You know, at the point that a baby can live outside of its mother's womb on its own, that's too far. You shouldn't have an abortion at that point. So when I worked at Planned Parenthood, up until this, I don't know, like the last 2 years I was there, I had always believed that the point of viability was like 24, 25 weeks. Well, then one day I was reading this super scientific article in People magazine, and they were talking about this little girl who had survived, and she had been born at just under 22 weeks. And I think her name was Lily. And she's probably, I don't know, like 20 years old now. But at the time, she had been born right under 22 weeks, and she had survived. And so I was like, oh, well, it's not 24 or 25 weeks. Now the line of viability is like 21, 22 weeks, right? So now it had changed for me. And I thought, okay, well, I'm not okay with a woman having abortion past 21 or 22 weeks. So one day at this management meeting, my boss had announced that our affiliate was going to be building a 78,000 square foot abortion facility. And it was going to be in Houston, Texas. It was going to be 7 stories tall. So a 7-story tall abortion facility, 78,000 square feet, and we were going to be performing abortions through 6 months of pregnancy. So through 24 weeks. And I remember sitting in that meeting thinking, oh my gosh, okay, this is past the point where I think abortion is okay. This is past the point of viability. That was really the first time where I remember saying to myself, I don't know if I want to work here anymore. I don't know, I'm really not okay with this. A few months later, I had a budget meeting with my supervisor. And I was told in that meeting that they were going to be doubling my abortion quota. A certain number of abortions that we had to sell to women coming in. Now that didn't make sense to me, because I had always believed that our goal at Planned Parenthood was to reduce the number of abortions. But now they're telling me, not only do we have a quota that we have to meet, but now they're doubling my quota. And they're telling me that every single client that comes in, I must turn that client into a revenue generating client. Well, there's only one way to do that for a woman who comes in that's pregnant at Planned Parenthood, because we did not offer any prenatal care. Planned Parenthood does not offer prenatal care for women who are pregnant. They don't offer adoption services for women who are pregnant. The only thing that they can offer a woman who is pregnant who walks into a Planned Parenthood is to give them an abortion. That's the only thing that they offer. That's the only way that they can make money on a pregnant woman. That's why 96% of pregnant women who walk into Planned Parenthood will get an abortion. That's the statistic. Because it's the only thing that they can offer for them. It's the only service that they offer. Only 4%, I mean, hear that, only 4% of pregnant women who walk into a Planned Parenthood will leave still pregnant. That is a staggering statistic. Planned Parenthood is not a pro-choice organization. They are a pro-abortion organization. A month later, I was still having all of these feelings about my job and not really understanding what was going on. A month later was when I was called in to assist in an abortion. I'm not a medical person. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm a therapist by education. So I don't have any business being in a clinical room. But I was called in that day to assist. We had a new doctor there that day, and he wanted to teach us something. He wanted to show us what happens inside of the womb during an abortion. And he wanted me to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's belly during the abortion procedure so that he would be able to, in his words, visualize his target. And we did the ultrasound. We saw that the baby was 13 weeks along. Now, at 13 weeks, everything on an unborn child is completely formed. Arms, legs, fingers, toes. We can see the profile of the face. The heart's been beating since 21 days, post-conception. Brain waves are functioning. Every internal organ that we're sitting here with today is formed on a baby by 12 weeks. And this baby was 13 weeks along. And so I stood there looking at this ultrasound monitor, feeling nervous, apprehensive about what I was about to see, because I recognized that what I was looking at really looked like a baby. Now, I knew it couldn't be because I had been taught abortion science. And abortion science told us that a pregnancy doesn't turn into a baby until the mother decides that the pregnancy is wanted. And if the mother decides that the pregnancy is not wanted, then it's not a baby. Even if she's 7, 8, 9 months along into her pregnancy, if that pregnancy is not wanted, then it's simply not a baby. And this woman was here to have an abortion. So this pregnancy was certainly not wanted. So even though it looked like a baby and it had every characteristic of a human baby, it just wasn't, because this pregnancy was unwanted. And so I was trying to reassure myself of that. I was trying to convince myself of that. And I saw the suction tube. The suction wasn't yet turned on. I watched that go into the woman's uterus, and I saw it getting closer and closer to the side of this baby. And when it finally touched his side, the baby jumped. And I could see the baby moving and flailing his arms and legs, trying to get away from the abortion instrument, but there was nowhere for him to go. And when the doctor finally had everything in the right position, he asked for the suction to be turned on, and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction was turned on, and I watched as this perfectly formed, innocent baby was ripped and torn into pieces in his mother's womb. In a short period of time, the abortion was completed, and the ultrasound screen was black, and I knew that the abortion had been successful. I knew at that moment that my life was going to be different. I knew that I would never participate in an abortion again. I knew that what I had witnessed on that screen that day, it was not choice. It was not justice. It was not reproductive justice of any kind. It was not health care. I knew that what I had witnessed that day and what I had been a part of for 8 years, it was the intentional and deliberate killing of an innocent human being. And we have a word for that in our country. You know what it is?
Murder.
It's murder. That's what it is. We had a big year this past year in the pro-life movement. Roe was overturned. And that was an amazing thing. That's, Roe being now in the ash heap of history is exactly where it should have been. It's where it should be. For my state of Texas, for your state of Louisiana, it's been an amazing thing. For the bulk of the United States, however, it really meant nothing. For the bulk of states in the U.S., abortion remains unchanged. For the majority of the United States, brick and mortar abortion facilities are still open. They're still thriving. We've had this big victory, yet it seems like every time we have a victory, evil finds a way around our victory to continue doing evil things. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on the abortion industry and the evil nature of the abortion industry. And I feel like there's not many things that they do that surprise me. There's not many things that the abortion industry does that I can say, I didn't see that coming. In fact, I don't know that there's ever been a time that's happened in the past 13 years that I've left until recently. I don't know that they've ever surprised me until recently. When Roe was overturned and several states then banned abortion, the abortion industry made an announcement, and you may have heard this, you may have not, but the abortion industry made an announcement that they were buying RVs, motorhomes, and they were going to be perusing the state lines of states that had banned abortion. And they're going to be driving up and down those state lines in RVs. And they're going to be killing babies in the backs of RVs. Mobile abortion RVs. Seems safe, sanitary, right? They're going to be parking in Walmart parking lots and abandoned parking lots and killing babies. I didn't even see that coming. The medication abortion pill has expanded beyond what I could have imagined. There are over 70 websites right now where women in states where abortion is illegal, they can type in this website, they can go online without any proof of age, without any proof of their gestational dates. They can go in, they can put in their name, any fake date of birth, any fake date of their last menstrual cycle, and they can get medication abortion pills for about about $100. The pills are filled in a foreign country. The pills are filled primarily in India, China, and Belgium, and they're mailed to women at their homes or any location where they choose. Now, most recently, Biden and his incredibly partisan FDA has made medication abortion pills available in every pharmacy across this country, essentially turning women's homes into their own abortion facilities. Women don't even understand what they're doing to themselves and their children when they take these pills. I know, because I've taken these pills. I know what it does to their bodies. I know what it does to their babies. These women don't understand that when they take these pills, they will pass their baby in their toilet. They don't understand that when they take these pills, they will be looking into their toilet. They will be looking at their fully formed baby floating in their toilet. That they will have to make a decision. Do I pick up my baby from the toilet? Do I bury my baby? Do I put it in a freezer? Or do I flush my child down the toilet? We already have stories of women who have taken these pills, scooping their babies up, going to pregnancy centers with their babies in Ziploc bags saying, what do I do with my baby? They didn't tell me this was going to happen. What is this going to do to the women of this country? We already know the effects that it has physically. We already know that medication abortion pills have a significantly high rate of infection, sepsis, hemorrhage. We know that. But what does it do to these women emotionally who are having to relive this trauma over and over again every time they go back to their bathroom and they visualize their child floating there in their toilet? I believe that we are about to have a massive increase of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and possibly even suicide. And the world will say, what? What's going on with women? What's wrong with all of these women? And nobody will think to look at the fact that it was us, it was our society that has attempted to normalize the most unnatural thing that a woman can do to her child. Abortion is not normal. It is not healthy. It is not healthy to pit a woman against her child. Yet we try to convince people of that every single day. We try to convince women that the only way to be successful is to have an abortion. The only way to finish